This book is for those who sense they are standing on the wrong side of an invisible wall, a wall separating relentless effort from meaningful recognition, long hours from life-changing outcomes. If you have ever looked around and wondered why you're not being pulled into the inner circle despite your talent and commitment, you're not alone. What separates the best from the merely busy is not raw intellect or superhuman work ethic. It is a hidden operating system, one that transforms invisible labor into undeniable proof, busy work into leverage, and potential into tangible freedom. You were taught that excellence speaks for itself. That is a lie. In reality, value is not self-evident. It must be engineered, surfaced, and captured through systems. This book is the blueprint for that engineering. Grow to the top. The habits and mindset of top 0.1% PhD students is not about adding more hours to your week or cranking up your hustle. It is about learning how the top 0.1% operate, not just in academia, but in every elite field. You will see why some professionals accumulate opportunities and autonomy, while others remain stuck at almost. The truth is brutally simple. Outcomes do not follow effort. They follow systems, signals, and proof. Each chapter is a move in the operating system of the elite. You will start by mastering the game's scoreboard, learning to define and control the signals that decision-makers actually care about, not just the ones you've been told to chase. You'll learn to build a moat of rare, undeniable skill, one that repels commoditization and attracts leverage. You'll discover the art of finding and amplifying the right mentors, cycling your work at a speed that leaves others standing still, and turning every win into portable evidence that compounds. You will learn to see your network as an engine of exponential growth, not a set of competitors, but a map of leverage points. And you will learn to convert all this proof and momentum into true capital, scope, freedom, and the ability to choose how and where you spend your best hours. The world is not a meritocracy. It is a marketplace of signals and scarcity, attention and artifacts. Most will remain on the treadmill, burning out on invisible labor. A select few will choose to become architects of their own ascent, building a system that makes excellence visible and rewards inevitable. If you are ready to step off the treadmill and onto the flywheel, to stop hoping for recognition and start engineering it, then turn the page. This is your blueprint. The work ahead will challenge you, but it will also liberate you. Welcome to the other side of the gap. Chapter 1, The Gap. You have been lied to about the value of hard work. From the moment you entered the education system, you were sold a comforting but dangerous myth. If you keep your head down, do your work, and produce quality results, the world will eventually notice and reward you. You were told that merit is self-evident. You were told that excellence speaks for itself. You were told that if you just grind a little harder, the promotion, the grant, the recognition, or the freedom you crave will naturally follow. That is a lie. Look around you. You see colleagues who are less skilled than you, less dedicated than you, and perhaps even less intelligent than you, yet they are the ones getting the opportunities. They are the ones speaking at the conferences. They are the ones negotiating their own terms while you are drowning in a sea of tasks that never seems to drain. You feel busy, yet invisible. You are smart and hardworking, but you are stuck at almost. This disconnect is not a mistake. It is not bad luck. It is a structural reality of the modern knowledge economy. There is a brutal mismatch between the effort you pour into your work and the impact that work generates for your career. This is the gap. Most professionals spend their entire lives falling into this gap. They work harder and harder, hoping the sheer volume of their labor will build a bridge to the other side. It never does. The top 0.1% of PhD students, the elite performers who dominate their fields before they even graduate, know something you do not. They know that outcomes do not follow effort. Outcomes follow systems. In this chapter, we are going to expose the mechanics of that gap. We will dismantle the habits that keep you invisible and replace them with the operating system of the elite. You will learn why average performers drown in noise while the top tier creates undeniable signals. You will see the true game you need to be playing, a game of compounding proof, visible credit, rapid cycles, and leveraged relationships. The great decoupling of effort and reward. The primary reason you feel stuck is that you are delivering work that is invisible. You might be solving complex problems, fixing critical bugs, or conducting deep research, but if that labor does not leave a distinct, legible mark on the world, it effectively did not happen. Decision makers, whether they are bosses, investors, grant committees, or clients, cannot price invisible contributions. They are not omniscient. They are busy, distracted, and looking for shortcuts to identify value. When you bury your head in your work, assuming your manager is tracking your every move, you are making a fatal error. You are relying on their attention span, which is the scarcest resource in the economy. The gap widens because of a fundamental misunderstanding of what constitutes work. For the average performer, work is activity. It is attending meetings, clearing emails, and moving data from one spreadsheet to another. For the elite performer, work is only real if it produces an artifact. An artifact is a piece of evidence. It is a shipped feature, a published paper, a recorded demo, or a documented framework. Activity vanishes the moment you stop doing it. Artifacts remain. Artifacts travel when you are not in the room. Artifacts argue your case while you sleep. If you are spending 40, 50, or 60 hours a week on activity but only producing 1 hour worth of artifacts, you are working at a massive deficit. You are trading your life for a currency that has no exchange rate in the market of success. This problem is compounded by the trap of perfectionism. You delay sharing your work because you want it to be flawless. You hide your drafts. You wait for the big reveal. While you are polishing your masterpiece in the dark, someone else, someone with lower standards but higher velocity, has shipped 3 times. They have learned from real-world feedback 3 times. They have been seen by decision makers 3 times. By the time you finally emerge with your perfect solution, the market has moved on or the problem has changed. The person who shipped early and often has already lapped you. They own the narrative because they occupied the space while you were hiding. The stagnation trap. If you refuse to acknowledge the gap, the consequences are predictable and severe. It is not just about missing a promotion, it is about the slow erosion of your potential. The first symptom is professional stagnation. You become known as reliable. In the corporate and academic worlds, reliable is often a polite synonym for replaceable. You are the person who can be trusted to keep the lights on, which is exactly why you will never be moved to the strategy room. You become part of the infrastructure, essential for operation, but invisible to the future. Your pay growth mutes. Your role becomes lateral. You watch as the top rooms, the places where the real decisions are made and the real capital is distributed, remain closed to you. The second, more dangerous symptom is burnout. Burnout is rarely caused by the quantity of work. It is caused by a lack of return on investment. When you pour energy into a system that gives you nothing back, no recognition, no autonomy, no progress, your spirit breaks. Cynicism replaces curiosity. You start to believe that the game is rigged, that politics is the only way to win, or that you simply aren't cut out for the top tier. This cynicism leads to risk aversion. Because you have no capital in the bank, no reputation for shipping, no network of advocates, you become terrified of making a mistake. You cling to your current role because you don't have the leverage to demand a better one. You lock yourself in place, digging the gap deeper with every passing year. The architecture of elite performance. The top 0.1% of PhD students do not rely on hope. They do not rely on the benevolence of their advisors or the fairness of the universe. They rely on an operating system designed to bridge the gap. This book is that operating system. It is a translation of the habits used by the world's most productive researchers, adapted for the ambitious professional. It is not a collection of life hacks. It is a comprehensive restructuring of how you approach your career. When you successfully cross the gap, you trigger a flywheel effect. Instead of pushing a boulder uphill every day, your past work begins to generate momentum for your future work. You stop chasing opportunities and start attracting them. Here is what happens when the system works. You produce consistent artifacts. Those artifacts attract recognition from peers and leaders. That recognition converts into advocates who speak for you when you are not around. Those advocates grant you access to better projects and higher leverage environments. That access expands your scope and your optionality. Suddenly, you are not fighting for a seat at the table, you are being pulled toward it. You are solving bigger problems, which requires rarer skills, which grants you higher leverage. Your portfolio of proof works for you 24 hours a day. You have built a career that compounds. The roadmap to the top. To achieve this, we will move through a specific sequence of transformations. This is not a buffet where you pick and choose. It is a logical progression where each step unlocks the capacity for the next. We begin with signal mastery. You cannot win a game if you do not know how the score is kept. Most people track tasks. You will learn to track the 3 to 7 metrics that actually influence the decisions of your gatekeepers. You will learn to ignore the noise and focus entirely on the signal. Once you know what to measure, you need the capability to move those numbers. This is where the skill moat comes in. You will stop being a generalist who is good at everything and become the obvious, undeniable expert in a specific, high-value niche. You will build a fortress of competence that makes you scarce and therefore expensive. But skill in isolation is slow. To accelerate, you need mentor fit. You will learn how to audit environments and select mentors not based on their fame, but on their velocity. You will find the people and places that increase your slope, dragging you upward through their sheer momentum. With the right environment, you will turn up the speed. Cycle speed is about compressing your learning loops. You will move from months of planning to weekly shipping. You will learn to embrace the publishable standard, releasing work before you feel ready so that you can learn faster than your competition. As you ship, you must capture the value. Proof Engine will teach you how to turn every unit of effort into a portable asset. You will stop making claims and start showing receipts. You will build a trail of evidence that makes your competence irrefutable. However, you cannot scale alone. Leverage maps will show you how to design collaborations that create wins for others, turning them into champions for your success. You will learn the economics of recognition and how to build a network that works for you. Finally, you must convert this recognition into freedom. Capital gains is about the exchange. You will learn to trade your proof and your leverage for scope, compensation, and autonomy. You will build systems that allow you to sustain this elite output without burning out, protecting your creativity and your peace. The final phase, next level, integrates these elements into a permanent state of being. It is where the habits cease to be things you do and become who you are. The logic of leverage. You might be wondering why we follow this specific order. It is because leverage is sequential. You cannot negotiate for capital if you have no proof. You cannot build a proof engine if you have nothing to ship. You cannot ship with speed if you are in an environment that punishes iteration. You cannot choose the right environment if you don't have a skill that grants you entry. And you cannot build a valuable skill if you don't know which signals the market values. Every chapter in this book builds the foundation for the next. We start with the definition of value, signals, move to the creation of value, skills, accelerate the production of value, mentors and speed, solidify the evidence of value, proof, distribute the value, leverage, and finally, cash in the value, capital. This is the physics of career growth. You cannot cheat it. You cannot skip to the negotiation without the artifacts. You cannot skip to the artifacts without the skills. The gap exists because people try to jump across it rather than building the bridge plank by plank. The winner's posture. Before we turn the page, you must make a decision about your posture. There are 2 ways to walk through this world. The first is the posture of the loser. The loser thinks big but acts small. They wait for permission. They hoard their ideas. They view feedback as an attack on their identity. They blame their context, their boss, their company, the economy, for their lack of progress. They say, "I will ship it when it is ready." They are passive observers of their own decline. The second is the posture of the winner. The winner ships small but learns fast. They do not ask for permission, they create proof that makes permission irrelevant. They treat feedback as fuel, a necessary data point to calibrate their trajectory. They own their outcomes, regardless of the context. They say, I will ship it to see if it works. The winner understands that the only failure is silence. The only failure is invisibility. You are going to adopt the winner's posture. You're going to stop waiting for the perfect moment and start engineering your own momentum. You are going to stop being a ghost in the machine and start being the architect of your own value. This book is not for the passive. It is not for those who want to be comforted. It is for those who are ready to close the gap. It is for those who are tired of being overlooked and are ready to become undeniable. You have the ambition, you have the work ethic, now you need the system. But a system is useless if it is aimed at the wrong target. You can run at full speed, you can build the most robust skills, and you can ship every single day. But if you are optimizing for a metric that your decision makers do not care about, you are simply running faster toward a cliff. Before you can build, you must define the game you are actually playing. Most professionals are looking at a scoreboard that doesn't exist. To win, you must first learn to see the invisible numbers that control your destiny. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2: Signal Mastery. Everything you think you know about how your career is evaluated is likely wrong. You assume that your manager, your reviewers, or your clients are carefully analyzing the depth of your intellect and the nuance of your effort. You imagine them sifting through your work like archaeologists, brushing away the dust to admire the intricate details of your contribution. This is a fantasy. The reality is that the people who hold the keys to your future are exhausted. They are overwhelmed by data, bombarded by requests, and suffering from decision fatigue. When they look at you, they do not see the complexity of your daily grind. They are scanning for a signal. They are looking for a shortcut, a simple, legible proxy that tells them whether you are winning or losing. If you do not provide that signal, they will not dig for it. They will simply assume it does not exist. This is why the brilliant researcher with the messy data gets scooped by the average researcher with the clear graph. This is why the engineer who rewrites the entire legacy codebase in silence gets passed over for the one who shipped a single visible feature that increased user retention by 2%. The former created value, the latter created a signal. In this chapter, we are going to fix your transmission. We are going to stop you from broadcasting static and teach you how to tune your output to the exact frequency that decision makers are listening to. You will learn to translate top performer into a set of 3 to 7 numbers that make your impact undeniable. The legibility crisis. The core problem is not that you lack impact. It is that your impact is illegible. In the chaotic environment of modern work, fuzzy value is discounted to 0. If a decision maker cannot easily compare your output to someone else's, they will default to the path of least resistance. They will promote the person whose wins are quantifiable, comparable, and obvious. This is based on performance signal theory. Careers do not move on abstract merit, they move on scarce, decision-relevant evidence. Human beings are cognitive misers. We rely on the availability heuristic, which means we judge the frequency or importance of an event by how easily an example comes to mind. If your boss has to think hard to remember what you did last month, in their mind, you did nothing. You must take control of the scoreboard. If you do not define what success looks like for your role, someone else will define it for you. And they will likely define it using metrics that are easy for them to track but irrelevant to your actual value, like how many hours you sat in your chair, or how quickly you responded to emails. When you define the signal, you reduce the noise. You give your evaluators a lens through which to view your work. Suddenly, You are not just working hard. You are driving the core metric. Focus compounds when it is measured. By narrowing your field of vision to a few critical indicators, you stop drowning in busy work and start moving the needle that actually matters. The rule of 7. So what does a signal look like? It is not a to-do list. A checked box is not a signal, it is a receipt of activity. A signal is a measure of outcome. You need to design a personal signal set consisting of no fewer than 3 and no more than 7 metrics. Why this range? Fewer than 3, and you risk over-optimizing a single variable to the detriment of the system. More than 7, and you dilute your focus. You cannot prioritize everything, so if you try to signal everything, you signal nothing. These metrics must be tied to real decisions. They must be the numbers that, if they go up, make it impossible for your organization to ignore you. If you are a software engineer, do not track lines of code written. That is vanity. Track incidents resolved, features shipped, or reduction in cycle time. If you are a researcher, do not track hours read. Track papers submitted, citations, or grants won. Every week, your operation should revolve around these numbers. You need a weekly operating review where you look at your dashboard on Monday and plan your week solely to move those specific numbers. Then, on Friday, you demo your progress against those same numbers. If a task on your calendar does not directly contribute to one of your 3 to 7 signals, you must kill it, delegate it, or automate it. This requires a shift in identity. You are no longer a person who does tasks. You are a person who moves metrics. This public tracking of deltas, the change in the number from week to week, builds massive credibility. It shows that you are not hiding. You are standing in the arena, pointing at the scoreboard, and taking responsibility for the result. The lies we tell ourselves. You might be resisting this. You might be thinking that your work is too special, too qualitative, or too artistic to be reduced to a number. You are telling yourself that quality speaks for itself. This is the most dangerous myth in your arsenal. Quality is mute. It only speaks when it is translated into a language that gatekeepers understand. In a world of infinite noise, excellence that is unseen is functionally equivalent to mediocrity. You must translate your excellence into numbers and narratives. You must give your quality a voice. Another trap is the belief that more data is better. You might be tempted to build a massive dashboard tracking every minute detail of your workflow. This is a mistake. Excess metrics dilute attention. When you present a monthly report with 50 different data points, you are handing your boss a haystack and asking them to find the needle. You are making them work to understand your value. Your job is to hand them the needle. By capping your signals at 7, you force yourself to prioritize. You force yourself to decide what actually matters. Finally, there is the fear that signals are vanity. You worry that tracking numbers makes you a shallow careerist. But vanity metrics are only vanity if they are unlinked to decisions. If you track likes on a post, but likes don't lead to sales or reputation, that is vanity. But if you track qualified leads or speaking invitations, you are tracking the lifeblood of your career. The fix is not to stop measuring. The fix is to link your measurement to the decision gates that control your future. Engineering the evidence. Now we move to execution. How do you actually build this dashboard? It starts with a gatekeeper mapping exercise. You must identify the specific human beings who hold the keys to your next level. This might be your direct manager, a promotion panel, a grant committee, or a prospective client. Once you have the names, you must extract their criteria. Do not guess. Look at the job ladders. Look at the request for proposals. Look at the rubric used for the last round of promotions. Take those criteria and convert them into your 3 to 7 metrics. If the job ladder says, must demonstrate technical leadership, do not just nod. Ask yourself, what is the signal for technical leadership? Is it the number of design docs approved? Is it the number of junior engineers mentored who subsequently got promoted? Is it the number of cross-team conflicts resolved? Turn the vague requirement into a hard number. Once you have your metrics, you use the backcasting framework. You set a target for the quarter. Then you break that down into monthly milestones. Then you break that down into weekly deliverables. Every Monday morning, you schedule a 30-minute signal review with yourself. You look at your weekly target and ask, what must I ship this week to hit this number? This creates a leading indicator. You are not waiting until the end of the quarter to see if you failed. You are adjusting your course every single Monday. You must also practice signal hygiene. Every time you improve something, take a before snapshot. If you are about to optimize a database query, screenshot the slow load time before you touch the code. If you are about to reorganize a lab process, document the waste in the current system. Without the before, the after has no context. It looks like the status quo. You need the contrast to prove the delta. Keep these wins in a live results document, a simple running log of every time you moved a metric. Alchemy for the invisible. There will be times when your work feels truly intangible. You improved team morale. You prevented a disaster that never happened. How do you signal that? You convert soft wins to numbers using proxies. If you improved morale, did you reduce the attrition rate? Did you increase the survey satisfaction score? If you prevented a disaster, calculate the cost of the error that did not occur. Estimate the hours saved or the revenue protected. Use ranges if you have to. Saying, I saved the company between $50,000 and $100,000 by preventing this outage, is infinitely more powerful than saying, I fixed a security vulnerability. When you lack your own authority, you must borrow credibility. Attach your signals to reputable tools, standards, or benchmarks. If you improved performance, compare it to an industry standard. If you launched a project, mention that it uses a framework developed by a top tech firm. Seek third-party validations. A pull request accepted is a signal. A feature flag merged is a signal. These are external proofs that your work met a quality bar. Finally, you must make the scoreboard visible. Do not keep your metrics in a private spreadsheet. Share a monthly Delta report with your manager or your team. This is a simple screenshot or email summary showing where the numbers were and where they are now. Invite micro-reviews tied to each metric. Ask for feedback specifically on the movement of the signal. This trains your stakeholders to care about the things you are measuring. The verdict. When you implement this, 3 things will happen. First, you will feel a tremendous sense of clarity. The anxiety of am I doing enough vanishes because you know exactly what enough looks like. Second, your conversations with your manager will shift. You will stop talking about tasks and start talking about trajectory. You will stop asking for validation and start showing proof. Third, and most importantly, you will begin to detach your value from your time. When you are measured by outcome, it does not matter if it took you 4 hours or 40 hours to move the metric. If you can move the signal efficiently, you buy back your freedom. But here is the catch. A scoreboard is useless if the score never changes. You can define the perfect metrics, you can set up the most beautiful dashboard, and you can map every gatekeeper in your industry. But if you do not have the raw capability to drive those numbers up, you are just documenting your own stagnation. Identifying the signal is only the first step. To dominate the game, you need to generate the force that moves the signal. You need to stop being a generalist who is moderately good at moving many small numbers and become a specialist who can aggressively spike the one number that matters most. You need to build a fortress around your value, a defense so strong that no one can compete with you, and an offense so potent that your results become inevitable. You have the map. Now you need the weapon. Chapter 3, Skill Moat. You are currently in danger of becoming a commodity. In the brutal calculus of the professional world, a commodity is anything that is easy to find, easy to replace, and consequently cheap to acquire. If you left your position tomorrow, how long would it take your organization to replace you? If the answer is a few weeks or a month, you do not have a career. You have a temporary assignment. You are renting your seat. The top 0.1% of performers understand a fundamental economic truth that most people ignore. Value is a function of scarcity. If you possess a skill that is rare, difficult to acquire, and essential to the survival or growth of your organization, you are no longer an employee. You are a strategic asset. You have leverage. You have protection. You have what we call a skill moat. A medieval castle without a moat is just a large house waiting to be sacked. The moat is the defense mechanism that makes an attack too costly to attempt. In your career, a skill moat is a deep, specialized capability that separates you from the horde of generalists. It is the reason recruiters call you. It is the reason you command a premium. It is the reason you survive layoffs. Most people try to build a career by being good at everything. They want to be well-rounded. They want to be versatile. This is a trap. In the modern economy, the generalist is the first to be automated and the first to be ignored. To grow to the top, you must do the opposite. You must pick a specific, painful problem and become the undeniable, world-class solution to that problem. You must dig a moat so deep that no one else can cross it. The economics of unfair advantage. Why does this matter? Because leverage grows with depth. When you are a generalist, you are competing with everyone. When you are a specialist with a deep moat, you are competing with almost no one. Consider the difference between a general practitioner and a neurosurgeon. The general practitioner sees everyone, knows a little about everything, and is constantly fighting against the clock to see more patients. The neurosurgeon solves one specific, terrifying problem. Because the stakes are high and the skill is rare, the neurosurgeon dictates the terms. They do not chase patients. Patients chase them. This is the position you need to occupy. You need to find a niche with teeth. This isn't about picking a specialty that sounds fancy. It is about finding a problem that is expensive, recurring, and budgeted. You are looking for the bleeding neck problem, the issue that is causing your boss, your client, or your industry actual pain. When you solve a painful problem, you gain immunity. Rare problem solvers are prioritized and protected. While others are begging for resources, you are granted them because your work is critical to the mission. Furthermore, a deep skill moat deters copycats. If your value comes from sending emails and attending meetings, anyone can copy you. If your value comes from navigating complex regulatory frameworks, optimizing high-scale database reliability, or designing grant-winning narratives, you are insulated. The difficulty of your skill is your insurance policy. The myth of the Renaissance man. You have likely been told to follow your passion. This is terrible advice for building a moat. Passion is internal, value is external. You should not follow your passion. You should follow the market's pain. You can learn to love the process of solving a hard problem, but you cannot force the market to pay for a passion that solves nothing. You have also been told to be a T-shaped person. This is actually good advice, but most people get the proportions wrong. They focus entirely on the horizontal bar of the T, broad literacy across many subjects, and neglect the vertical bar, the deep, piercing spike of expertise. They are a dash, not a T. To build a moat, you need that vertical spike. You need to be literate enough in adjacent fields to collaborate, but you must be dangerous in one specific area. You need to be the person who walks into the room and knows more about X than anyone else in the building. There is a third myth that holds people back, the belief that mastery takes years before it yields value. You might think you need another degree or a decade of experience before you can claim expertise. This is false. Value appears in weeks, not years, if you use targeted repetition and hypothesis-driven work. You can build a formidable moat in 90 days if you stop dabbling and start digging. The pain scan. The first step to digging your moat is identifying where to dig. You cannot guess at this. You must run a diagnostic on your environment. We call this the pain scan exercise. Stop looking at your job description and start looking at the headaches around you. Interview 5 stakeholders: your manager, a skip-level leader, a peer in a different department, a client. Ask them, what is the one problem that keeps coming back no matter how many times we try to fix it? Ask them, what is the most expensive mistake we made last year? You are looking for a pattern. You are looking for a problem that scores high on 3 variables: frequency, severity, and budget. Is it happening often? Does it hurt when it happens? Is there money or political capital available to fix it? Once you have a list, pick one. Do not pick three. Pick one. This is your niche. It might be automating the quarterly reporting process that takes 3 weeks. It might be fixing the data ingestion pipeline that breaks every Tuesday. It might be writing the technical documentation that no one else wants to write. This niche must have teeth. It must matter. If you become the world's best expert at organizing the office holiday party, you have a niche, but it has no teeth. It does not drive revenue, protect assets, or reduce risk. Pick a problem that scares people. That is where the leverage is. The 4-week sprint. Once you have your target, you do not go back to school. You run a sprint. You're going to use a method called hypothesis-driven work. Your thesis is simple. If I master this specific sub-skill, I will create 10x value for this organization. You will deconstruct the skill into its component parts. If your target is data reliability, the components might be monitoring, alerting, and rollback strategies. You are not trying to learn data science. That is too broad. You are attacking the specific bottleneck of reliability. Here is your protocol for the next month. Week 1 is for immersion. You are not reading textbooks. You are analyzing exemplars. Who is already doing this well? Find their white papers, their talks, their open source contributions. Reverse engineer their artifacts. If you want to be a master of field research, look at how the best researchers structure their logs. If you want to write high-conversion copy, hand copy the best sales letters of the last decade. You are building a mental model of what good looks like. Weeks 2 and 3 are for shipping. You are going to design micro-projects. These are real projects with small scope but real stakes. Do not practice in a sandbox. Fix a real bug. Write a real proposal. Design a real dashboard. The constraint is that it must be shippable in 1 week. You are forcing yourself to go through the entire cycle of execution. You will stumble, you will make mistakes, and you will learn more in these 2 weeks of active struggle than in 2 years of passive reading. Week 4 is for validation and codification. You gather reviews on your work. You ask, did this fix the pain? Then you do something critical. You publish a case study and a template. You turn your learning into an artifact. You say, here is the problem we had, here is how I fixed it, and here is the tool I built so we never have to fix it again. Market validation. How do you know if your moat is working? You look for pull. In the beginning, you have to push your value. You have to volunteer for the hard tasks. But as your moat deepens, the dynamic flips. You start seeing inbound requests. People start asking, can you look at this? Can you join this meeting? Can you help us figure this out? This is market validation. It is the sound of the market acknowledging your scarcity. Track these requests. Track the referrals. If you are a freelancer or consultant, track the willingness to pay. If you are an employee, track the scope you are entrusted with. If you hear silence, if no one cares about your new skill, you have 2 options. You either reposition the niche because you failed to articulate the value, or you picked a niche without teeth. In that case, you pivot. You update your prior, adjust your position, and dig in a new spot. This is not failure, it is data. The trap of the secret master. There are pitfalls to watch out for as you dig. The most common is shiny object hopping. You start digging a moat in data analysis, but then you hear that AI prompt engineering is the new hot thing, so you run over there and start digging a new hole. Then you hear that blockchain is back, so you run over there. The result is not a moat. It is a field full of shallow holes that offer no defense and no leverage. You must lock in a theme for at least 12 weeks. If a new idea comes up, put it in a parking lot. Do not deviate until you have hit depth. The second pitfall is private practice. You study in secret. You practice in the dark. You wait until you feel like a master before you show anyone your work. This is fatal. A moat that no one knows about is not a deterrent. It is just a hole. You must practice in public. Publish your build logs. Share your ugly drafts. Let people see the speed of your improvement. The visibility of your growth is a signal in itself. The third pitfall is overscoping. You try to solve the entire problem at once. You try to build the perfect system. You will burn out before you ship. Constraints create speed. Define done as a small, concrete improvement. Sell starter packages of your skill, tight, outcome-focused deliverables that prove your worth without drowning you in complexity. The view from the fortress. When you successfully build a skill moat, the feeling of your career changes. The anxiety of irrelevance fades. You stop worrying about office politics because you know that your competence is your shield. You have something that the organization needs more than you need the organization. You become the go-to person. This status gives you control. You can negotiate for better pay, better hours, and better projects. You can say no to busy work because your time is too valuable to be wasted on low-leverage activities. You have built an engine of career capital that runs on the fuel of your expertise. But a deep moat and a strong signal are not enough. You can be the most skilled person in the world with the clearest metrics, but if you are planted in barren soil, you will not grow. You can have the engine of a Ferrari, but if you are driving in a swamp, you will go nowhere. Your skill creates potential, but your environment determines your kinetic energy. You need to find the people who can take your raw speed and multiply it. You need to find the rooms where the air is charged with momentum. You have built the fortress. Now you need to find the allies who will help you expand your empire. The next step is not about what you know, or even who you know. It is about finding the specific friction that sharpens you rather than grinds you down. Chapter 4, Mentor Fit. You can have the sharpest skills in the world. You can have a dashboard of signals that lights up like a Christmas tree. You can have a work ethic that scares your peers. But if you plant a redwood seed in a flower pot, it will not become a giant. It will become a bonsai, a miniature, stunted version of what it was meant to be. This is the tragedy of the high-potential individual placed in a low-velocity environment. You are likely operating under the assumption that your internal drive is enough to overcome external friction. You believe that if you just push hard enough, you can drag a sluggish team, a distracted manager, or a bureaucratic organization across the finish line. You are wrong. Friction always wins. The top 0.1% of performers do not try to change the laws of physics. They understand that their trajectory is not just a vector of their own effort, it is a product of their environment. They know that who they stand next to determines how fast they move. This chapter is not about finding a mentor in the traditional heartwarming sense. It is not about finding a wise elder to have coffee with once a month to discuss your feelings. It is about something much colder and much more effective. It is about locating a slipstream. It is about finding the specific people and places that possess a momentum you can borrow, match, and eventually surpass. We call this mentor fit. The physics of slope. Think of your career growth as a line on a graph. The angle of that line is your slope. In a bad environment, the slope is flat. You have to fight for every inch of vertical progress. In a high-performance environment, the slope is steep. The default state is growth. You are pulled upward simply by existing in the ecosystem. The right mentor or the right team compresses time. They have already navigated the maze. They have already built the network. When you plug into their infrastructure, you inherit their speed. A year spent working under a high-output leader who demands excellence is worth 5 years spent working under a manager who is merely nice. But here is the danger. Momentum is contagious, but so is stagnation. If you join a team where shipping is an event that happens once a quarter, you will subconsciously adjust your internal clock to match that rhythm. You will start to believe that 3 months is a reasonable amount of time to do 3 days of work. You will drift. And drift is the silent killer of careers because it feels comfortable until you wake up 5 years later and realize you haven't moved. The celebrity trap. When ambitious people decide they need a mentor, they almost always make the same mistake. They look for the biggest name they can find. They chase the celebrity of their field, the famous professor, the CEO, the keynote speaker. They assume that proximity to fame equals proximity to success. This is the famous equals best myth, and it is a trap. The most famous people in your field are often the ones with the least amount of time. They are on airplanes, they are managing crises, they are doing PR. If you manage to get them to agree to mentor you, you will likely get a distracted, sporadic relationship that looks good on a resume but provides zero structural support for your growth. You do not need a celebrity. You need a captain. You need someone who is currently in the trenches, shipping work at a velocity that frightens you. You are looking for active momentum, not historical prestige. A rising star who is hungry and aggressive is infinitely more valuable to you than a semi-retired legend who is resting on their laurels. The rising star needs you to help them build their empire. The legend just needs you to not mess up. The momentum audit. So how do you find these people? You do not guess, you audit. Before you commit to a lab, a team, a manager, or a mentor, you must conduct a forensic analysis of their track record. This is due diligence for your life. You are looking for three things: output, outcomes, and alumni. First, look at the output. What have they shipped in the last 6 months? Not what have they planned, not what have they announced, but what have they actually put into the world? If the answer is nothing much, run. High-performance environments are defined by a relentless cadence of delivery. Second, look at the outcomes. Does their work get used? Does it get cited? Does it generate revenue? You want to attach yourself to a winner, not just a worker. Third, and most importantly, look at the alumni. Where are the people who used to sit in your seat? Are they leading their own teams? Did they get promoted? Did they launch successful companies? Or are they still stuck in junior roles, bitter and burned out? The alumni network is the crystal ball of your future. If the last 5 people to work for this person are successful, the system works. If they are invisible, the system is broken. Courting with proof, not pleas. Once you have identified a potential mentor or environment with high momentum, you face the next hurdle. How do you get in? Most people send the pick your brain email. You know the one. Dear so-and-so, I admire your work and would love to buy you coffee and pick your brain for 30 minutes. Delete that draft. That email is a request for charity. It asks a busy person to stop what they are doing, which is high-value work, to give free consulting to a stranger. It signals that you are a consumer of value, not a creator of value. Top performers court with proof. They do not ask for an opportunity. They create a sample of the value they can provide and hand it over. We call this the results packet. Instead of asking for a meeting, you do the work first. You read their latest paper, find a gap in the data, and run a small analysis to fill it. You look at their open source project, find a bug, fix it, and send the code. You look at their business, identify a bottleneck, and draft a one-page proposal on how to solve it. Then you send the email. I saw you were working on X. I took the liberty of doing Y, which I think solves the problem you mentioned in your last talk. Here is the file. No response needed, just wanted to be helpful. This changes the dynamic instantly. You are no longer a supplicant. You are a peer. You have demonstrated competence, initiative, and respect for their time. You have proven that you can ship. Mentors do not want projects. They want partners. When you show up with a finished artifact, you prove you are a partner. The deputy strategy. Sometimes the person you want to learn from is truly unreachable. They are the CEO or the department chair, and their calendar is a fortress. In this case, do not give up. Use the 2-level mentorship strategy. Every powerful leader has a lieutenant. They have a chief of staff, a lead engineer, a senior postdoc, or a head of operations who actually runs the machine. These people are often the gatekeepers of the culture and the architects of the momentum. They are also usually less famous and more accessible than the figurehead. Target the deputy. They are often the ones doing the heavy lifting, and they are usually hungry for reliable help. If you can become indispensable to the deputy, you gain access to the environment. You get into the slipstream. You learn the systems. And eventually, because you are delivering value to the person the leader trusts most, you will get the leader's attention. The culture of truth. Once you are inside, you need to validate that the fit is real. The ultimate test of a mentor or an environment is the quality of the feedback. In a low-performance culture, feedback is polite. It is vague. It is designed to spare your feelings. Good job. Maybe think about this for next time. This is poison. It allows mediocrity to fester. In a high-performance culture, feedback is a form of respect. It is precise, rapid, and often uncomfortable. It focuses on the work, not the person. This argument is weak because the data doesn't support premise A. Fix the data or change the premise. You want to be in a room where people tell you the truth. You want a mentor who cares enough about your potential to hurt your feelings in the short term to protect your career in the long term. If you find yourself in a place where everyone is always nice, but nothing ever improves, you are in a stagnation trap. You need to exit. The ghosting protocol. There is a risk here. You might do the audit, send the proof pack, get the position, and then silence. Your mentor is too busy. Your manager is a ghost. You are left alone to figure it out. This is where many people fail. They wait. They sit by the phone, waiting for instructions. They assume that mentorship means being taught. Mentorship is not teaching, it is steering. If your mentor is ghosting you, it is likely because you are not giving them anything to steer. You are waiting for them to provide the energy. You need to invert the equation. Use portfolio nudges. Do not send checking-in emails. Send shipping updates. Since we last spoke, I shipped X. Here is the link. I am now starting Y. I will send a draft on Friday. You keep moving. You keep shipping. You create a stream of artifacts that flows into their inbox. Eventually, they will engage because it is easier to steer a moving car than a parked one. And if they still don't engage, you have a portfolio of work that you can take to someone else. You have built your own momentum. The bridge. When you find the right fit, when you align your ambition with a mentor who demands your best, and an environment that moves at breakneck speed, something clicks. You stop feeling like you are pushing a boulder. You start feeling like you are falling forward, faster and faster. You have the signals that define the game. You have the skill moat that gives you leverage. You have the mentor who opens the doors. The engine is built. The car is on the track. The road is clear. But a fast car and a clear road are useless if you don't know how to drive. Most people think they know how to work. They think work is a linear process. You have an idea, you spend months building it, and then you release it. This linear approach is a death sentence in the modern world. It is too slow. It is too risky. It assumes you are right before you have proven anything. To truly capitalize on the environment you have just fought to enter, you need to fundamentally alter the way you perceive time. You need to stop thinking in quarters and start thinking in hours. You need to stop trying to build cathedrals in the dark and start building tents in the daylight. There is a rhythm to elite performance, a heartbeat that separates the masters from the dreamers. It is a pulse that beats faster than you are comfortable with, and until you sink your heart to it, you will always be one step behind. Chapter 5: Cycle Speed. You are currently betting your career on a single massive wager. You are working on a project that has been running for months, perhaps even years. You have convinced yourself that this long incubation period is necessary because the work is complex or novel. You tell yourself that you are building a cathedral, and cathedrals take time. But deep down, you know the truth. You are not building a cathedral, you are hiding. You are hiding from the judgment of reality. As long as the work stays on your hard drive, it is perfect. It has no bugs, no logical flaws, and no critics. It exists in a state of pure potential. But the moment you ship it, the moment you let it collide with the real world, that potential collapses into a concrete result. And that result might be a failure. So you delay, you polish, you add one more feature, you wait for one more pass of data. You are suffering from the planning fallacy, the delusion that things will go exactly as you imagine them if you just plan hard enough. The top 0.1% of performers do not make massive wagers. They do not trust their own predictions enough to bet 6 months of their lives on a single hypothesis. Instead, they operate with a completely different relationship to time. They do not try to be right, they try to be fast. They understand that the only way to reduce the risk of a big failure is to commit many small failures at high velocity. This is the discipline of cycle speed. It is the art of compressing the loop between having an idea and getting the truth about that idea. It is the difference between the sniper who takes one shot a year and misses and the machine gunner who walks their fire onto the target in seconds. The mathematics of evolution. Why does speed matter more than precision? Because in knowledge work, precision is an illusion until it is tested. Imagine two professionals. Professional A works on a 6-month cycle. They spend 2 months planning, 3 months building, and 1 month polishing. They launch once. They get one piece of feedback. If they were wrong about the market or the problem, they have wasted half a year. Professional B works on a 1-week cycle. They spend Monday planning, Tuesday through Thursday building, and Friday shipping. In the same 6 months, Professional B has launched 26 times. They have received 26 rounds of feedback. They have had 26 opportunities to correct their course. Even if Professional A is a genius and Professional B is average, Professional B will win. Why? Because Professional B is evolving. Professional A is guessing. This is the feedback gradient. The steeper the gradient, meaning the more frequent and dense the feedback, the faster you climb the learning curve. When you shorten the cycle, you compound your learning. Early errors are cheap. They cost you a few days. Late errors are fatal. They cost you your reputation. The Friday ritual. To harness this power, you must dismantle the way you currently work. You must stop managing your time and start managing your output. The mechanism for this is the weekly sprint. The rule is simple. You ship every Friday. This does not mean you ship a finished product every Friday. It means you ship a unit of truth. This could be a prototype, a draft of a paper, a raw data visualization, or a single coded feature. The definition of done is that it must be visible to someone else. It must leave your computer and land on someone else's screen. This cadence creates a forcing function. When you know you have a demo at 4 p.m. on Friday, the fog of procrastination lifts. You stop wondering what to work on. You stop tweaking the font size. You focus entirely on the one thing that needs to exist for the demo to succeed. Schedules beat moods. Amateurs wait for inspiration. Professionals stick to the cadence. When you lock in a recurring review window, you remove the need for willpower. You don't ship because you feel like it. You ship because it is Friday. The Wednesday guillotine. The biggest enemy of the weekly cycle is the belief that you cannot finish in time. You look at your task list on Wednesday, realize you are behind, and your instinct is to push the deadline. I'll just demo next week, you say. This is the beginning of the end. Once you move a deadline, you break the spell. You signal to yourself that the timeline is negotiable. The elite strategy is to never move the deadline. Instead, you cut the scope. This is the Wednesday guillotine. If you reach Wednesday and you are not 80% done, you must ruthlessly hack away features until the remaining work fits into the remaining time. If you cannot build the whole dashboard, build one chart. If you cannot build the chart, build the table. If you cannot build the table, write the memo explaining the data. You must ship something. This teaches you the most valuable skill in the modern economy, publishable satisficing. It forces you to distinguish between what is essential and what is decoration. It forces you to accept that good enough to learn is better than perfect but late. The feedback gradient. Shipping is only half the cycle. The other half is the collision. You need to design a ritual that extracts the maximum amount of truth from your reviewers in the minimum amount of time. You need 3 reviewers. First, a user, someone who will actually consume the work. Second, a peer expert, someone who knows the technical craft and can spot structural flaws. Third, a stakeholder, someone who cares about the business outcome. Do not email them a file and ask, "Thoughts?" That is a recipe for silence or vague praise. Get them in a room or a call for 15 minutes. Show the work, then ask specific, dangerous questions. What prevents this from being used today? What is the one thing that is most confusing? If this fails, why will it fail? You are not looking for validation. You are looking for the blockers. You log the feedback, assign 1 to 3 fixes for the next sprint, and close the loop. This is how you climb the mountain. You don't jump to the summit, you take 26 steps, correcting your footing after each one. The negative list. One of the secrets to maintaining this pace is knowing what not to do. Every sprint should begin with a negative list. Write down the things you are explicitly ignoring this week. I am not fixing the mobile view. I am not checking the citations for the literature review. I am not optimizing the database query. By writing them down, you give your brain permission to let them go. You reduce the cognitive load. You are not forgetting them, you are deferring them. This allows you to pour all your energy into the few things that made the positive list. The smoke test. There is a fear that moving fast means breaking things. This is true, which is why you need a safety mechanism. We call this the smoke test. 24 hours before your demo, you run a quick dirty check. Does the code compile? Does the document open? Does the main argument make sense? You are looking for showstoppers. The goal of the smoke test is to avoid the embarrassment of a demo that doesn't start. It buys you one last day to fix the critical errors, or if necessary, to execute a radical scope cut. It is the final guardrail that allows you to drive at full speed without crashing off the cliff. The identity shift. When you commit to this cycle, something profound happens to your reputation. You stop being the person who is working on it. You become the person who ships. In any organization, reliability is the scarcest currency. People flock to those who deliver. Collaborators trust you because they know their effort won't be wasted in a project that never launches. Mentors invest in you because they see a return on their advice every Friday. Your cadence becomes your brand. You are no longer judged by your potential, you are judged by your velocity. And because you are learning 26 times faster than your peers, your quality eventually overtakes theirs, too. The trap of eternal polish. You will face resistance. Your ego will scream that the work isn't ready. You will worry that people will judge your rough drafts. Let them judge. While they are judging your draft, you are already working on the next version. While they are critiquing your prototype, you are gathering data they don't have. Remember, perfection unseen earns 0 credit. A perfect idea in your head is worth less than a flawed prototype in the world. The market rewards evidence, not intent. If you find yourself rewriting the same paragraph for the 10th time, stop. You are not improving the work. You are soothing your anxiety. Ship it. Let the feedback tell you if it's good, rather than your insecurity telling you it's bad. Troubleshooting the engine. What happens when you stall? If you face chronic slippage, if you miss 3 Fridays in a row, it is not because you are lazy. It is because you are bad at scoping. You are trying to do too much. The fix is not to work harder. It is to cut your ambition in half. Aim for a smaller win. If you face a feedback drought, if no one shows up to your demos, it is because you are not providing value. You are asking for favors, not offering insights. Fix this by reviewing their work first. Create a trade economy, or make your demos so short and insight-rich that they become the most interesting 15 minutes of their week. If you face context switching, if you can't focus because of emails and meetings, you need to defend your time. Set a work in progress, WIP limit of 1. Do not start task B until task A is shipped. Block your calendar, batch your communications. Protect the sprint at all costs. The inventory problem. Now you are moving. You are running weekly sprints. You are generating a stream of prototypes, drafts, and data. You are learning faster than anyone else in the room. But you are about to run into a new problem, a problem of abundance. You are generating a massive amount of material. You have folders full of code, documents full of analysis, and decks full of insights. But right now, that value is trapped. It lives on your hard drive. It lives in your local environment. It lives in the memory of the 3 people who attended your demo. If you leave your job tomorrow, that value disappears. If you move to a new team, you start from 0. You are like a factory that is producing incredible inventory but has no trucks to ship it to the market. You are building wealth. but it is illiquid. To truly capitalize on your speed, you need to transform your raw output into something else. You need to turn your temporary wins into permanent assets. You need to take the exhaust of your daily work and refine it into a fuel that can travel without you, opening doors in rooms you have never entered. You have the speed. Now you need the engine that turns speed into legacy. Chapter 6, Proof Engine. You finish the work. You close the laptop. You feel a surge of pride because the code compiles, the analysis is clean, or the project launched on time. You tell your manager during your one-on-one, and they nod approvingly. You assume the transaction is complete. You did the work, and now the world knows you are competent. You are wrong. In 3 months, that project will be a vague memory. In 6 months, your manager will struggle to recall the specific details of your contribution. In a year, when you are sitting in an interview for a role that pays double your current salary, you will be forced to rely on the weakest currency in the professional world, your own word. You will say, "I led a high-impact project." The interviewer will nod politely, but internally they will doubt you. Why? Because talk is cheap. Claims are invisible. Everyone claims to be a results-oriented problem solver. The top 0.1% of performers do not rely on claims. They rely on evidence. They understand a fundamental truth about the career market. Claims do not travel, but proof does. You need to stop building a resume and start building a proof engine. You need to close the gap between trust me and see this. The artifactization principle. The core problem with most knowledge work is that it is intangible. It happens inside your head, inside a private repository, or inside a meeting room. When the meeting ends, the value evaporates into the ether. To capture that value, you must embrace the artifactization principle. This principle states that work is not done when the task is finished. Work is done when it has been transformed into a portable asset that can exist without you. An artifact is a piece of evidence that sells your competence while you sleep. It is a one-page case study. It is a 3-minute video demo. It is a reusable template, a code repository, or a teardown of a complex problem. When you have an artifact, you change the physics of your career. A claim requires you to be in the room to defend it. An artifact fights for you when you are not there. When a decision maker is debating whether to hire you, promote you, or fund you, they do not forward your compliments. They forward your links. If you do not have a link, you do not have a lever. The resume is dead. You might be thinking, but I have a portfolio. It's called my CV. A CV is not proof. A CV is a list of allegations. It alleges that you possess certain skills. It alleges that you drove certain results. But in a low-trust world, allegations are discounted heavily. Real proof is granular. It is visual. It is verifiable. Consider 2 candidates for a senior data science role. Candidate A has a resume that lists expert in Python and machine learning. Candidate B has a link to a GitHub repository containing a clean, documented model that predicts housing prices, accompanied by a blog post explaining the feature selection logic and a visualization of the error rates. Candidate A is a risk. Candidate B is a known quantity. Candidate B has de-risked the hiring decision by providing a try-before-you-buy experience. Candidate B wins, even if Candidate A is technically superior, because Candidate B made their value legible. The myth of the designer. There is a pervasive myth that portfolios are only for designers, architects, and artists. You might think, I am an operations manager, or I am a back-end engineer, or I am a researcher. I don't make pretty pictures. This is a limiting belief that keeps you poor. Every role produces outputs. If you are an operations manager, your artifact is a before and after process map showing how you reduced cycle time by 40%. If you are a researcher, your artifact is a 1-page executive summary of your findings with a chart that changed the company strategy. If you are a back-end engineer, your artifact is a technical write-up of how you solved a concurrency issue posted on a developer blog. If you solve problems, you have artifacts. You just aren't packaging them. The artifact kit. So, how do you build this engine? You do not need to build a complex personal website that takes months to design. You need a simple, repeatable system for packaging your wins. For every significant project you complete, you should produce an artifact kit. This kit has 3 components. First, the one-page case study. This is the narrative anchor. Do not write a novel. Use the PAR structure: problem, action, result. Problem: what was broken? What was the pain? E.g., the legacy billing system crashed every Tuesday, costing 10 a week. Action: what specific thing did you do? E.g., I refactored the queuing logic and implemented a new caching layer. Result: what was the outcome in numbers? E.g., crashes reduced to 0, latency dropped by 50%. Second, the visual proof. Humans are visual creatures. A wall of text is a barrier. An image is a bridge. If you built software, record a 3-minute Loom video walking through the feature. If you improved a process, show the messy diagram versus the clean diagram. If you analyze data, show the chart. A screenshot is worth 1,000 bullet points. Third, the reusable asset. This is the power move. Take a piece of your work, a checklist, a spreadsheet model, a document template, a script, and scrub it of sensitive data. Then, give it away. When you provide a utility that others can use, you stop being a person who did a job and become an authority who sets the standard. Platform signaling. Once you have your artifact, you must decide where to place it. This is where most people fail. They post their brilliant case study on a personal blog that gets 3 visits a month. You need to leverage platform signaling. In the economy of trust, the venue matters as much as the content. If you publish an article on a respected industry platform, you borrow their authority. If you contribute code to a major open source project, you borrow their reputation. This is about credibility anchors. You want to attach your name to brands, standards, and communities that your gatekeepers already respect. If you are a developer, a merged pull request in a famous library is worth 50 repos on your personal account. If you are a marketer, a guest post on a top-tier marketing site is worth 100 posts on your LinkedIn feed. You must climb the platform ladder. Start where you can. Post on Medium or LinkedIn. But as your proof accrues, pitch up. Aim for venues that have a barrier to entry. The harder it is to get published there, the more valuable the signal becomes. The confidentiality excuse. The most common objection to building a proof engine is confidentiality. I can't share my work, you say. It's proprietary. I signed an NDA. This is a valid constraint, but it is often used as a lazy excuse. You do not need to share trade secrets to share proof. You can redact, you can anonymize, you can synthesize. If you built a proprietary trading algorithm for a bank, you obviously cannot publish the code. But you can write a high-level article about the challenges of low-latency architecture in financial systems. You can build a synthetic version of the project, a simplified model that solves a similar problem using public data, and publish that. Do not let an NDA erase your history. If you cannot show the exact work, show a shadow of the work that proves you know how to do it. The speed of trust. When you commit to this system, you create a library of evidence. You stop scrambling to prepare for performance reviews or interviews. When someone asks, "Do you have experience with X?" you do not say yes. You say, "Yes, here is a link to a project where I solved that exact problem, and here is the template I used." This compresses the trust timeline. It allows you to bypass the skepticism that greets every new professional interaction. You become pre-approved in the minds of those who matter. Furthermore, this engine forces you to do better work. When you know that every project will eventually be packaged into a public artifact, you pay attention to the details. You clean up your code, you clarify your logic, you ensure the results are measurable. The act of documenting excellence forces you to practice excellence. The trap of perfectionism, again. Do not wait until you have a masterpiece to publish. Your portfolio is not a museum, it is a laboratory. A messy, interesting experiment is better than a polished, empty page. Use a template library to speed this up. Do not design every case study from scratch. Create a standard layout: problem, action, result, image, link, fill in the blanks. Packaging a win should take hours, not weeks. And always, always put the numbers first. Do not bury the lead. Your headline should not be a study of database migration. It should be how we reduced query time by 90%. Lead with the result, hook them with the impact, then keep them with the proof. The missing link. You now have a machine that generates proof. You are shipping fast, Chapter 5, and you are capturing the value of that speed in portable artifacts, Chapter 6. You have a URL that proves you are elite. But there is a limitation to this engine. It is still powered by you. Your portfolio sits there, waiting for people to click on it. Your artifacts are powerful, but they are stationary. You are still the primary sales force for your own value. You are the one sending the links. You are the one making the pitch. To truly scale, to reach the top 0.1%, you need to stop being the only person selling your stock. You need to create a situation where other people are advocating for you when you are not even in the room. You need to turn your individual proof into collective leverage. You have built the assets. Now you need to build the distribution network. But this network isn't made of servers or cables. It is made of people, incentives, and a very specific type of map that reveals who actually holds the power to pull you up. Chapter 7, Leverage Maps. You have hit a ceiling. You might not feel it yet, but it is there, hovering just inches above your head. You have optimized your personal output. You are shipping weekly. You are building artifacts. You have a skill moat that makes you dangerous. But you are still limited by the most stubborn constraint in the universe. You are only one person. There are only 24 hours in your day. There is a limit to how much code you can write, how much strategy you can design, and how many problems you can solve with your own two hands. If your career growth is tied linearly to your personal labor, you will eventually plateau. You will work harder and harder for smaller and smaller marginal gains. The top 0.1% of performers break this ceiling. They stop playing a game of addition and start playing a game of multiplication. They understand that the greatest career hacks do not happen on their laptop, they happen in the minds of other people. To reach the elite tier, you must stop viewing your colleagues as competition or distractions. You must start viewing them as nodes in a network that can amplify your signal. You need to build a machine where your effort is the input, but the output is multiplied by the reputation and reach of everyone around you. You need to draw a leverage map. The myth of the lone genius. We are culturally conditioned to worship the solo creator. We imagine the genius scientist laboring alone in the lab until the eureka moment. But if you look at the actual behavior of elite doctoral students and high-impact professionals, you see something different. You see a web. They are rarely working in isolation. They are constantly engineering situations where their success is inextricably linked to the success of others. They are not just doing work, they are designing collaborations that force other people to become their champions. This is the principle of collaborative leverage. It states that your value is not just what you produce, it is what you enable others to produce. When you help a powerful node in your network win, and you ensure that win is documented, you create a debt of gratitude. But more importantly, you create an incentive for them to pull you up. If you are the reason your manager got promoted, your manager will want to bring you along to their new department. If you are the reason a client hit their bonus, that client will fight to keep you on the contract. Leverage lives in people. Cartography of power. Most people navigate their organizations blind. They see an org chart, a rigid, hierarchical tree that tells you who reports to whom. This is a useless document. It tells you about authority, but it tells you nothing about influence. To build leverage, you need to draw a real map. You need to conduct a stakeholder mapping exercise for every major project you touch. You are looking for 4 specific types of people. First, the deciders. These are the people who hold the budget or the green light. They care about ROI and risk. Second, the influencers. They might not have a fancy title, but the decider listens to them. They care about reputation and being right. Third, the beneficiaries. These are the people whose lives get easier if you succeed. They are your natural allies. Fourth, the blockers. These are the people who lose status or resources if you succeed. They are the friction. Once you identify these nodes, you must identify their incentives. What are they afraid of? What are they greedy for? A leverage map is not a list of names, it is a diagram of desires. If you want to create a win, you must align your artifact with their incentive. You are not asking for help, you are offering a vehicle for them to get what they want. When you frame your work as the solution to their anxiety, you stop pushing a boulder uphill and start riding a landslide. The economics of credit. There is a toxic belief that credit is a zero-sum game, that if I give you credit for this win, there is less credit left for me. This is poverty thinking. In the economy of reputation, credit is a candle, not a pie. Lighting someone else's candle does not dim yours. It makes the whole room brighter. However, while you should be generous with credit, you must be ruthless about attribution. Ambiguity is the enemy of leverage. If you collaborate on a massive project and it is unclear who did what, the credit will default to the person with the highest status, not the person who did the most work. You need to establish credit clarity before the work begins. This is not about being petty, it is about being professional. We call this the attribution agreement. Before you start a joint venture, sit down and define the receipts. Who is the lead author? Who owns the code? Who presents the slide deck? If we succeed, whose metric moves? Document this in a simple one-page scope. It acts as a prenup for your project. It prevents the resentment that rots relationships and ensures that when the win happens, the dividends are paid out correctly. Co-wins with receipts. The most powerful way to build leverage is to engineer a co-win. This is a project where your success is mathematically tied to someone else's success. Find a peer who has a complementary spike. If you are a back-end engineer, find a front-end wizard. If you are a data scientist, find a compelling storyteller. Propose a project that neither of you could do alone, but together creates a massive signal. But here is the trick. You must agree on a shared metric. If we ship this, we both get to claim we reduced latency by 50%. When you have a shared metric, you eliminate friction. You are no longer fighting for resources, you are fighting for the same number. And when you publish the artifact, the case study, the white paper, the tool, you put both names on the cover. You tag them in the announcement. You shout out their contribution publicly. By making them look good, you make it safe for them to make you look good. You are training your network that collaborating with you is a career accelerant. The Advocate Kit. Now we arrive at the most critical tactical maneuver in this chapter. You have done the work, you have collaborated, you have achieved a result. Now you want your partner to tell the world about it. Most people make a fatal error here. They ask for a favor. They say, hey, could you put in a good word for me? Or could you write me a recommendation? This is a high-friction request. You are asking them to do work. You are asking them to think, to write, to edit, and to risk their social capital. Most people are lazy or busy, so they will put it off. You will get silence, not because they don't like you, but because you gave them homework. The elite performer uses advocate enablement. You do not ask for advocacy, you manufacture it. You build an advocate kit. This is a pre-packaged set of assets that makes it effortless for someone to champion you. If you want your boss to pitch you for a promotion, do not just ask for the promotion. Write the pitch for them. Draft the email they need to send to HR. Bullet point your top 3 wins with links to the artifacts. If you want a client to refer you, write the referral email for them. Here is a blurb you can forward to anyone who needs X. Include a summary of what you achieved, a quotable line about the impact, and a link to the case study. You are loading the weapon and handing it to them, handle first. All they have to do is pull the trigger. When you reduce the activation energy required to help you, the volume of help you receive explodes. The give first flywheel. This system works best when you prime the pump. You cannot extract leverage from a network you haven't fed. You must be the first one to give credit. Make it a habit to shout out others' wins publicly. When you see a colleague ship something good, post about it. Link to their work. Analyze why it is good. This does two things. First, it signals that you are a confident player who isn't threatened by others' success. Second, it invokes the law of reciprocity. When you become a source of positive signal for others, they subconsciously look for ways to return the favor. Track your assists. In your personal review, log the wins you enabled for other people. Did you unblock a teammate? Did you make an intro that led to a sale? These assists are the invisible threads that bind your leverage map together. When you need a favor later, a warm intro, a back-channel reference, a defense in a closed-door meeting, you will have a surplus of social capital to draw upon. Navigating the politics. Of course, things can go wrong. You will encounter free riders, people who are happy to take the credit but do none of the work. This is why the artifactization principle, Chapter 6, is your defense. If you have a clear trail of commits, drafts, and documents, it is very hard for someone to steal your credit. But you must also use milestone gates. If a collaborator isn't pulling their weight, you pause. You have a no artifact, no credit rule. If they don't contribute to the build, their name doesn't go on the release. It is not personal, it is physics. You will also encounter hidden politics. You might align with a decider who is secretly on their way out, or a beneficiary who is actually a blocker in disguise. The defense here is diversification. Never rely on a single node. Build your map with redundancy. If one advocate falls, you need two others who can speak to your value. The referral engine. When you execute this correctly, you stop being a worker and start being a hub. You have a map of the territory. You know who needs what. You deliver artifacts that solve their problems. You package those wins so they can easily sell you to their bosses and peers. Suddenly, you are not applying for jobs. You are not chasing projects. Opportunities are coming inbound. You have built a referral engine. People are talking about you in rooms you have never entered, using words you planted in their mouths via your advocate kits. Your impact is no longer capped by your hours. It is traveling through the network, multiplying with every share, every forward, and every mention. You have achieved leverage. But there is a final danger. You can have all the reputation in the world. You can have a network that loves you. You can have artifacts that prove you are a genius. But reputation is not liquidity. Influence is not autonomy. You have built a massive stockpile of social currency, but currency is worthless if you do not know the exchange rate. You are currently sitting on a pile of potential energy, but unless you have a mechanism to convert that energy into kinetic freedom, into time, money, and control, you are just a very popular, very busy employee. The final step is the transaction. You need to learn how to walk into a room, place your proof on the table, and walk out with the keys to your own life. Chapter 8, Capital Gains. Imagine you are a stock trader. You have spent years analyzing the market, identifying the perfect asset, and buying in at the right time. You watch the chart go up. It doubles, it triples, it goes up 10 times its original value. On paper, you are rich. You are a genius. You have won the game. But you never sell. You hold on to that stock until the market turns, or the company folds, or you retire. You die with a portfolio that says you were worth millions, but you never bought the house, you never took the trip, and you never gained the freedom. You had paper wealth, but you never had liquidity. This is the exact trap that 99% of high-potential professionals fall into. You have spent the last 7 chapters building massive value. You have defined your signals. You have dug a skill moat. You have shipped at breakneck speed and built a library of undeniable artifacts. You have a network of advocates buzzing about your potential. You are rich in reputation. You are wealthy in goodwill, but you're poor in reality. Unless you convert that reputation into tangible career capital, higher pay, larger scope, or radical autonomy, you are working for free. You are collecting trophies when you should be collecting leverage. The top 0.1% of performers understand that recognition is just the first step. It is vanity. Conversion is the game. In this chapter, we are going to teach you how to cash out. We're going to turn your proof into power. The liquidity event. The reason you hesitate to ask for what you deserve is likely rooted in a misunderstanding of the employment relationship. You think that if you work hard enough, the system will naturally reward you. You think that your boss is keeping a meticulous ledger of your sacrifices and will eventually cut you a check for the balance. The system does not work that way. The system is designed to extract maximum output for minimum cost. If you are willing to deliver elite results for average compensation and zero autonomy, the system will happily let you do so forever. You must initiate the exchange. We call this the career capital exchange. You are trading the verifiable results you have generated, your artifacts and signals, for the assets you want: money, time, and control. This is not begging. Begging is when you ask for a raise because you have been there for 2 years or because your rent went up. That is trading on need. You do not trade on need, you trade on value. You are walking into a negotiation with a stack of receipts, your proof engine from Chapter 6, and asking to settle the account. If you do not force this liquidity event, your capital rots. Reputation has a half-life. The project you crushed 6 months ago is already fading from memory. The advocate who loves you today might leave tomorrow. You must strike while the signal is fresh. The options protocol. Most people are terrible at negotiation because they view it as a confrontation. They walk in, make a demand, and wait for a yes or no. This triggers a defensive response in the gatekeeper. The elite strategy is to never issue a demand. Instead, you present options. This is the ABC proposal. When you sit down for your quarterly capital audit, a meeting you schedule specifically to discuss your trajectory, separate from your standard performance review, you bring 3 packages to the table. Option A is the status quo plus. You continue doing exactly what you are doing, but with a market adjustment in compensation to reflect the proven value you have delivered. This is the low-risk option for the manager. Option B is the scope expansion. You propose to take on a larger, more painful problem, perhaps one you identified in your pain scan from Chapter 3. In exchange, you ask for a significant title bump and a salary increase. You frame this as a bargain. I will solve this expensive problem for you, and it will only cost you X. Option C is the autonomy pivot. This is often the most valuable option. You propose to deliver the same results, but with different terms. You want to work 4 days a week. You want to work fully remote. You want to be exempt from certain recurring meetings so you can focus on deep work. You are trading potential cash for actual freedom. By presenting 3 options, you change the psychology of the room. You are no longer asking, "Can I have this?" You are asking, "Which of these wins do you want to buy?" You shift the manager from a gatekeeper to a shopper. The receipt strategy. Crucially, you never enter these rooms empty-handed. You bring the evidence. Remember the artifacts you built, the case studies, the demos, the charts showing the delta in your signals? You print them out. You put them on the table. When you ask for a raise, you point to the artifact and say, "This project saved the department $50,000 last quarter. I am asking for a $10,000 adjustment." You are anchoring your ask to the reality of your impact. It is very hard for a manager to say, "You aren't worth it," when they are staring at a chart that proves you are. You are not arguing with their opinion. You are aligning them with the data. If you encounter resistance, you use the pilot tactic. You say, "I understand the budget is tight. Let's pilot option C for 30 days. If I hit these specific metrics while working 4 days a week, we make it permanent. If I miss, we revert." This lowers the risk to near zero. It makes it unreasonable for them to say no. You are betting on yourself because you know you have the system to deliver. The infinite assembly line. This brings us to the second half of the equation. You can negotiate all the scope and autonomy you want, but if you have to burn yourself out to deliver it, you haven't won anything. You have just built a golden cage. Many high performers crash immediately after a promotion. They try to scale their output by scaling their hours. They think, "I'm at the next level now, so I need to work nights and weekends. This is the more hours, more output myth. It is false. Beyond a certain threshold, quality and speed drop precipitously. You make mistakes that take twice as long to fix. To sustain elite output, you must stop relying on heroism and start building an assembly line. You need output pipelines. An output pipeline is a system that turns a repetitive task into a mechanical process. Look at your work. What are you doing today that you also did last week? Are you writing the same type of email, building the same type of slide deck, running the same data analysis? If you do it twice, you must templatize it. Create a results factory. When a new request comes in, it should enter a standardized workflow. Intake, build, demo, publish. You should have templates for your documents, scripts for your code, and checklists for your quality control. When you automate the prep work, you save your brain energy for the high-value creative work. You are not starting from a blank page. You are starting from a framework. This allows you to produce A-level work in B-level time. The sustainable pace principle. There is a physics to human energy that you cannot cheat. If you redline your engine for too long, it will blow. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It is a systemic failure. It resets your progress. When you burn out, you disappear for months. You lose your momentum. You lose your signal. The top 0.1% operate according to the sustainable pace principle. They do not sprint until they collapse. They run at a pace they can maintain for a decade. To do this, you must install guardrails. These are hard rules that protect your capacity. The first guardrail is the WIP limit, work in progress. You strictly cap the number of active projects you will touch. If your boss asks you to take on a new project, you do not say yes. You say, I can take this on, but given my WIP limit, which of my current projects should I pause? You force the prioritization decision back onto them. The second guardrail is the recovery week. Just as elite athletes taper their training, you must schedule periods of lower intensity. After a 6-week sprint of shipping artifacts, schedule a week where you do no new creative work. You clean up your files. You update your documentation. You read. You let the field lie fallow so it can grow again. The pre-mortem defense. Even with systems and negotiation, things can go wrong. You might get the promotion and find yourself drowning. You might get the autonomy and find yourself disconnected from the loop. Before you sign the deal, run a pre-mortem. Ask yourself, it is 6 months from now and this new arrangement has failed. Why? Did you take on too much scope without enough resources? Did you negotiate for money but lose your visibility? Did you isolate yourself? List the risks and pre-solve them. If the risk is isolation, schedule a recurring FaceTime meeting to keep your relationships warm. If the risk is scope creep, define the anti-scope, the list of things you explicitly will not do in this new role. The freedom of choice. When you successfully execute the capital gains strategy, you reach a state of professional nirvana. You are no longer desperate. You are no longer waiting to be picked. You have a portfolio of options. You can stay in your current role and maximize your earnings. You can leverage your artifacts to jump to a competitor for a massive raise. You can consult on the side using your specialized skill moat. You negotiate from strength. When you don't need the job, you are free to do the job well. You can speak truth to power because you have the receipts to back it up and the exit options to leave if they don't listen. This is the ultimate ROI of the system. It is not just about having a bigger bank account. It is about having ownership of your time. It is about waking up in the morning and deciding where you will spend your best hours, rather than having that decision forced upon you by a calendar invite. The final integration. You have now walked the entire path. You started by seeing the gap between effort and impact. You learned to master the signals that decision makers actually watch. You dug a skill moat to create scarcity. You found the mentors and environments that accelerated your slope. You compressed your cycle speed to learn faster than anyone else. You built a proof engine to make your value portable. You drew leverage maps to multiply your reach through others. And now, You have learned how to trade that value for capital, for the freedom to design your own life. You have all the components of the machine. You have the engine, the fuel, the wheels, and the map. But a pile of parts is not a vehicle. A collection of habits is not a career. Right now, these strategies might feel like separate items on a checklist. You do signaling on Monday and do artifacts on Friday. This is a good start, but it is not the destination. To truly join the top 0.1%, these separate threads must be woven into a single, unbreakable cable. The system must cease to be something you use and become something you are. There is one final level of evolution where the friction disappears, where the flywheel spins so fast it becomes invisible, and where you stop engineering your success and start inevitably attracting it. You are ready to turn the key. Chapter 9, Next Level. You are no longer the same professional who opened the first page of this book. Back then, you were likely frustrated. You felt the disconnect between the hours you were burning and the recognition you were receiving. You were running on a treadmill, sweating and exhausting yourself, but staying in the exact same place. You were relying on hope. Hope that someone would notice. Hope that the system would be fair. Hope that your hard work would eventually speak for itself. Now you know better. You have looked behind the curtain. You understand that elite performance is not a lottery ticket. It is an engineering problem. You have dismantled the myth of the natural genius and replaced it with a set of mechanical levers that you can pull on purpose to generate a specific result. You have the blueprints. You have the tools. But a pile of tools is not a house, and a list of strategies is not a career. The danger at this stage is that you treat these chapters as a checklist of chores. You might think you need to do signaling on Monday and do artifacts on Tuesday. That is a start, but it is not the destination. The destination is integration. The goal is to fuse these 7 separate moves into a single, seamless operating system that runs in the background of your life. When this happens, you stop trying to be a top performer. You simply are one. The friction disappears. The flywheel takes over. The unified theory of you. Let's look at the machine you have built. It is not a linear path. It is a loop. It begins with the signal. You stop chasing vague notions of quality and define the specific decision-relevant metrics that the gatekeepers in your field actually value. You know the score before the game starts. Because you know the score, you know where to dig your skill moat. You stopped being a generalist drifting in the shallow end and became a specialist solving a painful, expensive problem. You created value that is scarce. To accelerate that value, you found the right mentors and environments. You stopped looking for famous names and started looking for high velocity. You placed yourself in a slipstream that drags you upward. Inside that slipstream, you turned up the cycle speed. You rejected the perfectionism that hides work and embraced the weekly rhythm of shipping. You are learning 26 times faster than the person waiting for the perfect moment. You captured that learning in a proof engine. You stopped making claims and started showing receipts. You built a library of artifacts that argue your case when you are not in the room. You distributed those artifacts through leverage maps. You stopped working alone and started engineering wins for others, turning your colleagues into a referral network that amplifies your name. Finally, you cashed in. You used capital gains to trade your proof for power, money, and autonomy. You bought your freedom. This is not a list, it is a circuit. Your capital buys you the autonomy to pick better signals. Better signals lead to sharper skills. Sharper skills attract faster mentors. Faster mentors demand quicker cycles. Quicker cycles produce more proof. More proof creates more leverage, and more leverage yields more capital. The flywheel spins, and every time it completes a revolution, your ceiling raises. The death of hope. The most profound shift you will feel is the death of anxiety. Anxiety in a career usually comes from a lack of control. It comes from the gnawing suspicion that your fate is in someone else's hands. When you install this operating system, you take the controls back. You move from a mindset of hope to a mindset of engineering. You are no longer hoping for a promotion. You are manufacturing the evidence that makes a promotion the only logical outcome. You are no longer hoping for a client. You are building the artifacts that make hiring you a risk-free decision. You replace the vague goal of doing a good job with the concrete clarity of moving a metric. You replace the fear of the annual review with the predictability of the weekly demo. You replace the awkwardness of asking for a raise with the confidence of a business transaction based on documented ROI. You are not chasing luck anymore. You are increasing your surface area so that luck has no choice but to hit you. The gravity of competence. As you execute this system, you will notice a change in how people treat you. In the beginning, you had to push. You had to ask for meetings. You had to volunteer for projects. You had to fight to be heard. But as your flywheel spins, the dynamic inverts. You start to generate gravity. Competence is magnetic. In a world full of noise, confusion, and flakiness, a person who ships reliable, visible outcomes is a rare resource. People want to be near that resource. They want to attach their projects to your momentum. Your relationships improve because the politics disappear. Politics is what happens when people fight over scarce credit in a fog of ambiguity. When you bring clear signals, shared metrics, and undeniable artifacts to the table, the fog lifts. You become a high-return node in the network. Your colleagues know that if they collaborate with you, they will get a win, and they will get the receipts to prove it. You stop being a competitor and become a force multiplier. You are the person who makes everyone else in the room look better. And because you have enabled your advocates with the kits they need to sell you, they will carry your name into rooms you haven't even entered yet. The compound interest of effort. The hardest part of this system is the first month. Digging the moat is hard. Building the first artifact is slow. Establishing the first weekly cadence feels like a grind. But here's the secret that keeps the top 0.1% going. It gets easier. Every artifact you build is an asset that you can reuse. The template you created for that first case study, you use it for the next 50. The code you wrote to automate that report, it runs forever. The trust you built with that first mentor, it pays dividends for a decade. You are leveraging the power of asset reuse. You are not starting from zero on every project. You are standing on the mountain of work you have already done. Your system begins to do the heavy lifting for you. This is how elite performers seem to produce impossible amounts of work without burning out. They aren't typing faster than you. They are assembling new wins out of old parts. They are trading on a reputation that was built years ago. They are letting the compound interest of their past effort pay for their current lifestyle. The ignition sequence. You are now standing at the threshold. You have read the words. You understand the logic. But understanding is a trap. It feels like progress, but it is just data in your brain. Nothing changes until you move. You do not need to overhaul your entire life today. You do not need to quit your job or start a company tomorrow. You just need to turn the key. Here is your immediate protocol. We call it the 1-1-1 action. First, pick one signal, just one. Look at your current role and identify the single most important number that determines your success. Write it down. Second, ship one artifact this week. Not a perfect one, not a big one. Take one thing you have done recently, a solved problem, a finished task, a valuable insight, and package it. Turn it into a one-page PDF or a 2-minute video. Put it in a format that can be sent via a link. Third, book one review. Ask one stakeholder, your boss, a peer, or a mentor, for 10 minutes. Show them the artifact. Ask them the hard question. Does this look like a win to you? Do not wait for the perfect time. The perfect time is a myth used by cowards to delay execution. Do it now. The refusal of average. We live in a world that is designed to keep you average. The corporate structures, the academic institutions, and the social norms are all calibrated to produce reliable, interchangeable cogs. They want you to be good enough to function, but not distinct enough to have leverage. They want you to be busy, but not impactful. To grow to the top, you must make a moral decision to refuse average. You must decide that your potential is too valuable to be wasted on invisible work. You must decide that your time is too precious to be sold for a flat rate without equity in your own future. You must decide that you are done waiting for permission. This is not about arrogance. It is about responsibility. If you have the capacity to solve hard problems, you have a duty to solve them, and you have a duty to make sure those solutions travel far enough to help others. The gap is closed, the signal is clear, the system is ready. You have spent enough time in the audience. It is time to take the stage. The flywheel is yours to spin. Start it now.